Hello, my name is Danielle Swaney. I'm going to give a presentation today on interpersonal communication for class HSCO 508 for Liberty University. I'm going to start off by introducing myself a little deeper. Again, my name is Danielle Swaney. I'm a mother of 2 daughters. I've been happily married for over 9 years. My husband is working his way through through medical school. I'm working my way through graduate school. It is a bit crazy at times, but we feel privileged and blessed to have these opportunities in our lives. What got me here is I've always had a passion for counseling, communication, for reaching out to others, and I've wanted to always pursue that, and the right doors have been opened, and here I am. A few hobbies of mine is I love to run. I love working out in the yard. I also homeschool our daughters, so finding ways to educate them and make them love learning has become a great hobby of mine. And there are many avenues out there, so it takes a lot of time to figure out the homeschooling route of curriculum and what to do and how to make things work for every family. We have a motto in our family mantra that God is first, then us, and then our careers. So we try to stay really focused and centered on our family, even though all the times of busyness, and this course has really helped our communication. Learning objectives for this presentation, or I'm going to define communication. I'm going to talk about my overarching goals and my behavioral blends that I have diagnosed myself with through this wonderful course, my communication barriers, the helpful resources I have come to find out that help me get over my communication barriers and the strategies to get over them, and lastly, my action plan to use those strategies and resources to overcome my barriers. What is interpersonal communication? Interpersonal communication is what connects us to each other. It is a subset of communication involving collaboration, choices, culture, identities, conversations, and nexting. I found a great quote about interpersonal communication as being woven through all aspects of living and as meaningful in the context of living. As a multidisciplinary activity, it is found in almost every subject and subset of our culture, and it is how people, again, connect to one another. So there's verbal and nonverbal communication. It may sound pretty self-explanatory, but you would be surprised how much we can overlook. Verbal is our vocal pacing, our pitching, our sound, our loudness, if we're pausing, our silence. Those project a lot of communication verbally, and then there's other ways to communicate non-verbally through our facial expressions, eye contact, the space between us and somebody else, touch, body movement, and gestures. My overarching goal, my OAG, is that I struggle with becoming avoidant, and I like to avoid conflict. I also have a hard time not letting my heart get compromised for my convictions when connecting with others, and I get my identity of exaggeration by using feedback of others can kind of take over and make me a little weak to where I stand, and I will be a little more flimsy in what I truly believe in. I have a hard time not knowing when to go the extra mile with people and being the rescuer when it comes to listening and advising. I have an issue with trying to not overcare and also to be more assertive are my goals. So my behavior blend, what is expected of me was an S. That means that I like to be stable and support. I like to be in places where I feel secure and an environment that's familiar and that I know what to expect. I respond really well to leaders who give me some space and feedback and really allows me time to make changes when needed. What I need to learn is that support is not always possible being given from me and receiving from others. This is me. My behavioral blend was a CIS, and it overall, which was kind of important, is that both of my graphs were different, meaning that what I think people expect of me is not exactly who I am privately. So I have contrasting behaviors, and I struggle with that and know that is something that I need to work on. So some of the positives, though, is that I can be sensitive with my behavioral blend, supportive. I'm not very demanding. I tend to not need to be in charge. I'm very personable, and I can express in crowds and impress a crowd with the way that I speak. However, I can be very indecisive. My emotions can go up and down, and I can overuse my people skills and neglect to be firm against those who may try to control me, where I have already identified that I tend to overgive advice and my time. So communication barriers, perception, reception, and attention. Hearing what I want to hear, bias listening, green flag words, the effect of emotions on my listening. The style of listener that I am affects some of my ways of communication. My external distractions can be very distracting to me, and physical barriers. Personal communication barriers, my green flag words. For me, that means that when I'm in a conversation, if it's positive words or negative words, they can really throw me off when communicating with others, and I will fixate on those words versus continuing on with the conversation. And even when it's positive, sometimes I feel if someone gives me a compliment, there's some expectations I need to live up to, and so I stop focusing on the conversation at hand and start focusing on what they're expecting from me. My style of listening. I've realized that I am not the greatest listener that I once thought I was. I have a tendency to be the interrupter by cutting people off when I feel like I need to say something before I forget, or I start side conversations and I take someone's conversation away from them when they are a talker and I become the talker. I also realize that I become a dependent listener. Sometimes I try really hard to give people what they want to hear versus what the conversation is about. Physical barriers. I realize that this is something, physical barriers are physical effects that influence listening, and I tend to have a serious issue with this in my home life with my children and my husband. If the environment's loud, it can really bother my communication, and it stops me from being the correct communicator that I need to be. My energy level gets low if I'm fatigued, and this really prevents me from being the level 2 listener that I want to be by presenting with more energy and concentration. Fatigue is really what takes over my ability to do so. Resources that I've figured out through this study, especially through Peterson, when it comes to realizing what flat brain syndrome is and how our brains become overloaded with emotions and it turns everything out of whack. It changes our hearts and our stomachs into our heads, and we're not able to communicate the way we would. And from understanding that from my perspective and placing it to others, you bring in the talking card, which is a great resource to have to overcome these communication barriers. The communication card of the talker listener is giving goals to both the talker and the listener, each having certain roles to help the communicate flow properly, and everybody in the conversation gets a turn to be the talker and to be the listener, and to realize when one is more important than the other for your role in the communication. Strategies, I want to know how to implement these better. I am working on recognizing flat brain syndrome when I am speaking, or my family or friends or just someone I'm just meeting is not going to hear my words, and that they are at a level of emotions that's too high to actually take in any new advice or hear anything. And also making the talker listener card part of my daily routine in the household especially. My plan is to do just that. Acknowledge moments of barriers that have come in between me and barriers that I've acknowledged in myself and acknowledging them in others, and to use really the talker listener card in our home at all times, and maybe carry it on my persons. So when I'm out and about, maybe this would be a great card to have with friends when we're both needing to talk and needing to figure out whose turn it is. Conclusion, my favorite quote for this semester was, "God gave us 2 ears but only 1 mouth." And I think that's because it's more important that we listen at times and not always need to be the talker. Thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed this course, and I look forward to better communication in the future. Take care.